So hello, today we're going to be going over position, distance, and displacement, and we're actually going to see how all these three relate and define each and every one of them and just show you example in order to understand. So this is okay, excuse me for the noise, the background noise, because some people are talking and I really can't tell them to stop talking. But okay, the point here is that there's this line, right? And let's say this is point A and this is point C. Let's assume this was the middle and this is B, okay? So now A, B, and C, these are all positions. They're all positions, okay? These are all positions. So position is where an object is currently at. So positions can differ depending on where you are standing and the distance between you and that object. So it really can differ, but that's not something we're going too deep into. And you know, the reference point and all those stuff, that's not what we're going too deep into for now. I will probably make another video on that. But okay, so just remember that wherever you are at is the position. So if you were here, then you're at position B. If you were here, then you're at position C. Now you understand what the positions are. You want to relate positions and distances. Let's say you went from here to here. Blue line represents the distance because it's the length covered. So the blue line is the length covered, and let's say the blue line was 20 meters. Distance is a scalar, while displacement is a vector. So let's go right here. So the black 20 meter represents scalar and the blue 20 meter represents a vector. A vector has magnitude and direction. The difference is that vectors have signs, either up, down, right, left. So depending on the problem you've been given, or depending on your choice or the situation, the sign can change. It could have been 20 meter to the right or 20 meter to the left. So you see, these things could change, and I'll explain everything with the graph, okay? So let's get back to the graph, okay? So here, let's erase this for a second. So now let's go back to the graph. Now to better understand this, say you had to go run an errand, okay? And you started here. And mind you, this starting point is 0 meters. So if you're at point A, it's going to be 0 meters because you haven't moved or covered any distance yet. Now if you reach point C, that's going to be 40 meters, okay? So now if you start point A and then you go to point B, and then you realize that, oh, you forgot something at your house. And then you're like, oh no, you need that thing. Maybe it's your wallet, maybe it's your phone, you know, transfer or whatever. And then you have to go all the way back home. Then you went back to point A, okay? So again, A, B, C are positions. And positions are where an object is at the moment. For example, point A is your house, point B is a supermarket nearby, and point C is, let's say, Target or your local market. If we were to calculate the distance you covered, then this is how it would be. So remember that the distance is the full length, or the full length covered. Considering that point B is half of A and C, then that would be 20. Point B would be 20 meters. If you had to go from A, then to B, then after go from B to A, what's the distance? The distance is the total length covered. You went once. Because you went once, that's 20 meters from A to B. Now you went the second time. As soon as you reached here, you went back to A. As soon as you reached B, the supermarket next to your house, you didn't go inside, but you were at that point, and then you realized, oh, I need to go back home because I forgot my wallet and I can't go to the store if I do not have my wallet. So then you headed back to A, and that whole distance is 20 meters again. So that's going to be equal to 40 meters. Now for the displacement, it will be different, because the displacement is the difference between your final position and your initial position. Your displacement doesn't really care about the length you covered, but the displacement is trying to know if you ended up coming back to the same place you started. If you did, then that's going to be equal to 0. And it's kind of crazy because the final position here is A subtracted by the initial position, which is also A. So technically, you didn't really move. Like, you started the same place and then you came back to the same place. So that's going to be 0. Because remind yourself, A is 0. So, okay, coming back, distance is equal to 40 and the displacement is equal to 0. Now, you could have written left, right, or up or down, but unfortunately it's 0. Well, not unfortunately, it's 0. So you really can't write up or down, left or right, downward, upward, whatever. You can't give it a direction because it's 0. So first of all, you went from A to B, okay? A to B, that's 20. And then from B to A, you repeated that length. You covered that length again for the second time. That's 20 again. And after the second time, you repeated that length from A to B, but this time you didn't stop in B. You continued all the way to C. That's because you finally reached your final destination. And from A to C is actually 40 meters. So 40 meters. And in total, you covered 80 meters. Displacement. Where did you start and where did you end up? I started from A, or you started from A, ended in C. So therefore, it's going to be C minus A. Final position minus initial position. And final position is C and initial position is A. So therefore, what does that give you? So you replace the values. The final position is 40 meters, and then you write 40, and then the initial position is 0. So 40 minus 0 is equal to 40. So 40 meter. What I prefer to do is choose between my left and my right. So which one is going to represent negative and which one is going to represent positive. So negative is either going left or down. That's what I always like to do. On the other hand, positive is equal to up or right. My right for me is positive and my left is negative. And since we went from A to C is, if you go from A to C, that's towards your right, okay? Because it's towards your right, I'm going to do 40 meters plus 40 meters. So my answer is plus 40 meters, meaning that I went up or I went right. Is it, and I actually pray you understand it. If you have any questions, again, comment below and I'll actually answer all your questions.